Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the series premiere of Scavengers Reign. Great series premiere. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So they kind of just throw you in the deep end. Obviously, you find out, the Demeter was at 227 went missing, and it's like, well, we don't really have the resources to kind of go looking for anyone where they potentially could have gotten lost. So let's hope for their sake, none of them survived. And so it's so interesting because I'm wondering if this is going to be our entire cast, the kind of, 5 characters we were introduced to so far. Because we do see, like, later on in the Demeter, there are other people in the capsules. Granted, the power was off, and then it did go, like, back to, like, survival's, like, 35%. So, I don't know maybe, luckily, I guess they were, like, cryogenically frozen. Like, they're in cryo sleep, so maybe they were, like, even when the power wasn't on, maybe it was enough. Like, because, like I said, we get thrown into the deep end because we don't even see them land. The way they talk about it seems like it's been months because they're already acclimated to, like, how this place runs. That fact is, they know, like, especially you get that with, I believe the characters are, is it Sam and Ursula? How, like, they're utilizing the creatures around them, because we see that more so with them than anyone else. But I mean, because you see it with Ozzy and Levi, more so with Ozzy, that it's like, all right, we know what precautions we have to take because we've been here long enough, so we've learned how to survive. So I'm curious. I mean, I doubt it, because it doesn't seem like they're setting it up to be like, oh no, there were other people with them. It seems like these 5 might have been the only ones. Once again, I don't know if a future episode's going to, like, because there are 2 other episodes that got released at the same time, but I don't know if it's going to be a situation of whether you'll ever get the explanation of why they crashed, because it might not be important. It's just like, yeah, they've been here for a while and they're surviving. Kind of like I said, just going ahead and throwing you into the deep end and showing that, like, they're already very proficient. Like I said, I'm sure there's a lot more backstory we'll get as things kind of progress regardless. Especially, I don't know if they actually said his name in the episode, but I believe the character's name is maybe Common. He's the dude, the longest red hair, who was kind of the only one who's by himself completely. So I'm also, well, I guess maybe like when they crash landed or something, they all went, they all kind of crashed at different places, and because it seemed like the others were already, like, out and about. He seemed like he was trapped inside the ship because his like ship, or part of the ship or whatever that he was stuck in, was like at the top of a tree or something. So he's been there the entire time. Like, that's why I'm wondering, was he in a cryo state and then finally woke up after all of this time, or what? Because, like, he just kind of like jerked awake. But to be fair, it's like, no, there are scratch marks, so I guess he must have been just having a nightmare. Scratch all that. Like, I'll keep it in, but yeah, now I'm thinking about it, it's like, right, if you look on the wall, he was keeping tallies of how long he had been there. So he was awake, but he was just trapped. For one, he's so high up, but also, like, he can't even get out of the like the ship or pod or whatever he's in. What's also interesting is the creature that we get introduced to in his side of the episode. It seems like they have this interesting, almost fungus it's the thing from The Last of Us. Kind of cordyceps-ish is the cordyceps is different than what I'm looking for, but it's not quite that. But it seems like basically they kind of mind control creatures to bring them food, which was interesting. We had that small creature, and then, like, a bigger version of it showed up, being like, no, this is my creature to get food from, so go find somewhere else. And it's weird. I don't know why, but it kind of gives me Ori, like Ori in the Blind Forest, and like that Ori, it kind of gives me a little bit of that, like, gives me that vibes for whatever reason. I'm not quite sure why, but I kind of get an Ori vibe when I see those creatures. I'm like I said, I'm not well versed enough in those games and fully know why I feel that way, but either way. But later on, it shows up, and it's actually the thing that rescues Levi, because this thing is telepathic and telekinetic, so it can, like, brainwash you and make you see stuff. I mean, I guess that's kind of like it's how it basically enslaves you by, like, controlling your mind. And but I thought it was so interesting because, like I said, it's telekinetic. It rips open, like, a way for him to leave, and as he was falling out the tree, it stopped him from going completely splat. But then because he's almost drawn to it, just like it needs him, he kind of needs it, because the light from it, like it puts him in a trance, but it got him kind of thinking about the past. I don't know if it's a significant other, whatever the circumstances are, but it's like seeing someone he most likely left behind. Now, whether they are gone or whether they are still alive, waiting for them back home, or maybe before he left, things were bad, who knows, but he got transported to good times, and he's eating, and it seems so real, but it seems like the creature feeds off of that. I don't know if it's just feeding off nutrients from his body, because he wasn't actually eating anything. It was all in his head. But I guess it's like if you can trick the host's body into thinking it's eating, maybe it produces certain things that this creature eats. I have no idea, because at least with the other things that it was controlling, they were actually physically bringing you actual food. So I don't know how it helps with this guy. Like I said, I think his name is Common. Because he's the only other character we didn't really hear his name. Maybe it came up and I just didn't hear it. But either way, he's just going off with the creature, because it's like, yeah, you're kind of his servant. It's like, that's wild for that to be like, yeah, you're finally free, but now you went from one captive situation into another one. So that's wild. We also have Ozzy and Levi, who are amongst the cast I've seen so far. They're the only the actresses are the only ones I'm familiar with. That being Wunmi Mosaku is Ozzy, which interesting timing, because obviously Loki's currently airing, and Levi is Aaliyah Shawkat. Because I was hearing Levi's voice and I was like, it sounded familiar. I think I knew that Wunmi Mosaku was in this, but I it felt like that was familiar. But when I heard Levi's voice, I was like, that does sound familiar, and I couldn't place it. But that's why. Obviously, the thing I'm best associated with Aaliyah Shawkat from is The Old Man, which really great show if you haven't seen it. I'm very excited for season 2 whenever that ends up happening. But either way, putting all that aside, that's an interesting pairing, because you feel very bad for Levi, because it seems like Ozzy doesn't like Levi. I mean, who knows if that predates the current circumstances, because it's like, okay, Levi, we kind of get a little background of like, all right, they're out there exploring, trying to find, I guess, like temporary homes and places to sustain society until we can one day return home. So I don't know if that's the thing of like, oh, we're kind of almost on like some Star Ocean type of thing of like, yeah, we're super out here in space and Earth is in its situation, so we're finding a planet to. I mean that ends up being a lot of space travel stuff, like I said, Star Ocean, or I mean that also depends on where you are in the Star Ocean timeline. But I mean, I think almost all of Star Ocean kind of flows into that same regard. But you have that Lost in Space is basically that. As well, that space type of adventure odyssey type of thing. But I'm curious if that's what it seems like. Earth's in a bad situation, but like I said, I don't know how far along it is of like everyone's in space because Earth is that screwed up, or whether it's just a situation of there's still people living on Earth, but it's bad, but we're trying to relocate, because they did say the whole thing about returning home. So. But Ozzy's like, oh yeah, the moment I get back, Levi, I'm selling you for a bike. It's like, and quitting this job, because it's just, I mean, understandable after everything you kind of going through. It's like, probably already felt that way, and current circumstances just expedited those feelings tenfold, But it feels like such a mean relationship. I mean, because, well, to be fair, like I said, we don't know if Levi's circumstances were that they were already a little glitchy and messed up, or whether it's just because there's special like material from this planet that is being used to kind of like, keeping Levi functioning, but doesn't quite work. I mean, because Ozzy kind of got pissed, because it's like, cool, you wasted one of our other flares again. It's like, well, I thought you were in danger. It's like, well, I had it handled. It's like, well, not really, because you didn't have your surroundings, like really, you weren't paying attention to the creature sneaking up on you. So she ended up having Levi reduce her threat level, which puts you in a disadvantage later on when they end up attacking you, destroying your crop, and starts ripping Levi apart, which is like, I was like, oh, please don't tell me Levi's going to die. That's going to be depressing. But it's like, okay, you survived the encounter, but you also used the last flare you had, and all your crops ended up being destroyed, so they have to relocate, which plays into the end of the episode, but we'll get to that soon enough. And then obviously we have our other crew, Sam and Ursula. Like I said, they seem to. Well, like I said, we got it a little bit with Ozzy of like how she ended up. How Ozzy ended up like taking that thing, put it on the end of a stick, and dragged it with the bike. Where it's like, okay, now it's creating this like acidic like gas in the air that those creatures couldn't go past because it was like burning them. Also, those things have like crazy regenerative abilities. Like Ozzy slashed one and it just immediately started regenerating. We even saw later on when it got blown up by the flare, one of them tried piecing itself back together. But it does seem like if you're able to do enough substantial damage, it is to the point that it can no longer regenerate. It seems, but maybe that's just implying like, no, it'll eventually, it might take a while, it might take longer, but it will eventually piece itself back together, you know, so that's going to be an annoying thing to continuously deal with. I mean, Ozzy and Levi have been dealing with that already, but you get the point. But like I said, circling over to Sam and Ursula, they're the ones we get to really see them kind of take advantage of the wildlife even more, and how they end up using it to their advantage. The whole point is for them to try and get the Demeter to kind of, because it's still stuck in space, to kind of get it down here, because it's like, well, if we can bring it down here, we can hopefully like get things repaired and potentially get out of here. So, I mean, we even see later on when they're exploring that, trying to find the other like pod or whatever that's got a battery, they had to put those creatures on their mouth. And it's just like, the fact is how it's animated, where it's just like, you see that like from the, down below perspective of the things having to go into their nose, kind of they're wearing them like gas masks. But then they end up running into that creature, and Ursula attacked it, and basically it produced a gas that like caused her to hallucinate, which is like how that was animated too. I was like, that is so disturbing. Like first the stuff growing off of her body, but then also you see her stomach kind of like explode. It almost like looks like, because it's almost like everything's growing from inside of her. But like I said, it's a defense mechanism to make you hallucinate. It's like, I don't think there will be any lasting effects, but and also, because I think that thing already took on the form of her, and it's just like, that was, once again, it's just, this show is already weird and trippy, but it's also like, so there's beautifulness in the weirdness. It's got a very neat, I saw something online kind of referring it to like, the people who animated this, I think they're the main people behind it are Joseph Bennett and Charles Huetner. I'm probably butchering that. I hope I'm not. I think Huetner. I'm probably butchering that, but it's a very distinct art style. I'm sure there's better comparisons. I'm not well versed in this game, but it's not the same. It's a different art style, but it kind of has that same flavor to it. I'm not well versed enough in art to really give you the specific words and terminology to kind of explain what I'm saying. But it kind of reminds me, if you've ever seen this video game, it's called Void Bastard. I've never played it, but I've seen someone play it before. It kind of has a similar art style. That has like a more shaded style to it. But it has such an interesting art style that I'm like, oh, interesting. Like I said, I saw somewhere describe it as kind of like this 70s-ish style. And I'm like, I think I could see that. Like, I think maybe you compare it to a little bit of that heavy metal. Was it like Heavy Metal 2000? Type of style, but not quite. It's just an interesting art style. It's very beautiful, especially with by how bright and colorful it is, and especially all the creatures. You can already tell this is going to be a weird bananas show in that regard. I do know that, because I was looking it up beforehand, I do know that this is actually based on a short that they had made previously. It's like an 8-minute short, which I haven't seen. I think it's kind of its own thing. I don't think it's a prerequisite to this, but maybe if I'm able to have time, I'm going to try and track that down and watch it. I think it's just on YouTube, but I could be mistaken. But either way, luckily Sam and Ursula were able to get out of their situation. I also like those creatures that you could basically use as little balloons. And I also love that if you notice too, the creatures don't deflate. Maybe they eventually do, but they just like flew, both of them just floated off into the air and just kept going. And I guess I guess eventually after a while, cause maybe that's kind of their defense mechanism to kind of like, just like a porcupine will like put up its like spikes, so maybe that's their defense mechanism of like, oh, when they just realize like, oh, they float away from danger, and obviously Sam and Ursula just realize like, oh, we can apply this and use it to our advantage and use them kind of like air balloons in a sense, almost like a hot air balloon type of situation. But luckily Sam and Ursula were able to activate the demeanor and bring it down, which we see that Ozzy mainly, but Ozzy sees it and tells Levi like, "Oh, we're going tomorrow." Obviously, the other dude, like I said, Common is like under control of the creature, but he does look up at it. But so maybe on some subconscious level he recognizes it, but once again, the pull of this creature is too much. But I don't know if whether like they're all going to unify in the next couple episodes, because I mean, who knows, like where it's landing, it's probably going to be a little while from when there's a lot of dangerous stuff you gotta get past here. But I don't know if the show's going to be about, will they all meet up by the end of the show, and will it just be bouncing between their different groups, or will they meet up pretty early on? I have no idea. I do know this is a 12 episode series, so to kind of put that in perspective of like I said, this is just the first episode and they've released 3, so we're a fourth of the way through the show already of what's been released so far. But I'm excited to keep watching. I'm excited to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.